Cities grow from many different things, such as mining cities or port cities. Probably the biggest of them all is an ocean port city, which is a subtype of port cities, as there's many other different types of port cities. A notable one is New York. New York is a huge example of a port ocean city because it is the USA's biggest city, and it has the third biggest port in the USA. New York is one of America's first cities that were a trading hub from the USA to England, and eventually to other countries, of course. And it has the World Trade Center, which feeds off of the port. It was the first American city to have over 1 million people, and it was one of the first cities in the world to have over 1 million people after Tokyo, New York, London, and Beijing. Modern growth is from skyscrapers and its surrounding metro growth that are beginning to get skyscrapers. It's a city that grows up, not outward. It is the world's third biggest city, and its port is one of the biggest in the USA. That expounds around 10 million tons per year of cargo. Its modern population is around 20 million, and by the next census is going to be around 21 million people. Other notable port cities are Tokyo, San Diego, LA, Seattle, Houston, and many others. Trade cities are cities that grew through ports, railroads, airport, and road highways and are a hub for trade. Cities such as Houston, Chicago, Seattle, Paris, and Tokyo all were centers of trade, whether it was from the ports or the railroads, airports, or highways, or a mixture of them all. Houston is a great example because it has all of the above. It has one of America's biggest ports, one of the biggest airports, a huge railroad connection, and more highways than probably any American city. Houston growth occurs much later than any other city I'll talk about. Its growth really was around the 1930s to the 1990s. In 1914, Houston built a canal, and later oil was discovered, and Houston became this booming trade city. It already had a major connection of railroads, and then later in the 1980s, they built a huge airport that also became a center of FedEx and UPS. Modern Houston has chemistry, oil, mechanics, rubber, electronics, and more. Houston is the USA's second biggest port city, closely behind New Orleans. Houston is home to the world's largest medical center, the Texas Medical Center, and it's the USA's fourth biggest city. Other trade cities are like Chicago, Kansas City, Topeka, and every city on the Silk Road. Another huge way that some big cities have been made is port cities that are lakes. Some cities grow next to a lake, like Chicago, and Mexico City is a great example. Modern Chicago grew off of this lake port, but also grew off from railroads that would be taken to the port, and its cargo would go from there. Go through Lake Superior, out through the canal, Erie Canal, and all the way to the ocean and wherever it had to go. Chicago was a major trading center at that time, and was America's biggest city for a time, not long though. It has always been an American major city, one of its biggest cities since the inception of the USA. Modern metro has a population of 9.5 million. Chicago has chemistry, machinery, computer, car ports, food processing, and more. Chicago has one of the world's tallest buildings, the Sears Tower, which you can actually see on this picture right here. Major cities such as Milwaukee, Duluth, Superior, Erie, and Cleveland are also huge lake cities. Another huge way they grow is across the river. Although less common now of a city growing off of a river, river port cities are still big. Most grew in the 1800s and never really stopped until recently, when most of them had to shut down or had their capacity to city ship out lowered by a lot. Some are like London, Paris, St. Louis. St. Louis is a big city and grew with its port along the Mississippi. St. Louis was where the Missouri River branched off the Mississippi River. The St. Louis was the place you brought things to ship down south, and it was this huge city at that time, and it was one of America's biggest cities until the last 100 years when river cities were no longer needed. Nowadays, St. Louis has aerospace, railroad equipment, metal, food processing, finance, and more. It's a huge city in Missouri, and its metro spills into Illinois with East St. Louis. The Jefferson Memorial is here, and of course, it is iconic, the Arch Bridge. St. Louis is around right here, along the Mississippi River. As you can see, it goes all the way up north, and so you'd sip things in all the way, and you'd stop at St. Louis. And then you'd kind of go all the way down to New Orleans and then leave. Golden cities is another way cities grew, and they are industrial cities, such as mining, such of things as gold, coal, diamonds, silvers, and others. Probably the most notable one is Denver, which nowadays has a population of around 600,000. The metro is around 1.2 million. A golden city is still big nowadays, not as big as other cities though. Denver became a mining city that grew huge. Most other mining cities don't grow as big as Denver, but some are like San Francisco, that became a mining hub. Denver became a mining town when gold was discovered in the Rocky Mountains. And Denver was just a great place to stop and then go mine, and maybe even live there, or sell stuff there. Denver grew more because of it being the capital of Colorado. That was probably another big reason that it grew. Modern growth is attributed to the rise of the electronics, aerospace, finance, and tourism. Of course, there are other examples, but Denver is the finest example of a golden city. There are some other golden cities, but there's none so big as Denver, Colorado. Fun cities or tourist cities such as Las Vegas, Miami, Paris, Orlando grew because of casinos, attractions, or they're a beautiful place to live. Las Vegas grew because of it went from a small mining town to a place where people would mine and then go to the casino. And it became the world's most hotels in one place. It quickly grew with tourism and entertainment industries, and that's today still its major industries. Its metro quickly gained other industries to support the casinos. Its metro population is 2.2 million. Las Vegas still has tourism as its main industry, but now has printing, food processing, electronics, rubber, mining, and chemistry. To this day, Las Vegas is still a massive city, and is just one of the many examples of a casino city. And they have many attractions, but other tourist cities like them are Hollywood, California, Cairo, Egypt, Athens, Rome, Paris, Orlando, London, and Miami. These are the 6 ways cities grow. Of course, there's mixtures of the 6 or other ways cities grow, but these are kind of the 6 ways cities usually grow. That is all.